out the trap. Take me off the mark.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to a much-awaited Coast to Coast podcast. We got the whole crew back. We're going to be talking some NBA. A lot of stuff's been going down since we last joined y'all, but first and foremost, boys, how we doing?
Amazing. Glad to be back.
Hey, I think this is the first podcast we've ever had. We're just end the season, and Jose can talk about the playoffs for his team. So, and not just squeezing in, they're doing fantastic. So let's lead off with the rise of the Sacramento Kings this season. I know we were all pretty high on them coming into the season. We thought that maybe they'd be around like a 6 to 8 seed, but they've exceeded everyone's expectations. One of the best offenses in basketball. They go out and make a trade last season to trade the promising young guard and Tyrese Halliburton for, a big man that's kind of mixed opinions everyone has on Domantas Sabonis, who is now going to likely be the third-team All-NBA center. There would be a shock if he wasn't. The only reason why he wouldn't be is if they somehow made some rule and made him a forward and he got higher. But Jose, I'll let you start off.
That real quick. Off of the new CBA, does that take place this year where they have the positionless all NBA teams, or is that like
it starts next year?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if it's positionless, I feel like he should be second, or like there's a case for first.
Yeah.
But as far as his impact, for our team, like he is our Nikola Jokic, essentially. And I really have to credit everything to Mike Brown, because I know the days of having, a solid roster that had some decent expectations going into the season, and then they just fucking flop, and then at the deadline, just everyone gets sold, and we just did nothing. But Mike Brown figured out, how to get these boys to run it through Fox, which is what we should have been doing for the past 5 years. I don't know what all of this, mess was last season before the trade, and just I don't know, but I'm glad that the trade happened, though, because this is the most exciting time to be a Kings fan in my life, and probably a couple generations' lives.
100%. I mean, one of the guys, we talked about Sabonis. I kind of opened up to both you guys. Kevin Huerter's been fantastic. He's having a career season. He's kind of this guy pushing that MO, the light the beam, that whole mantra with the team. Was this a real surprise to see a guy, he's a fine guard, he's nothing crazy, but he's averaging 15 a game, shooting 40 from three. He's been kind of one of those key, you almost want to call him a veteran at this point. I mean, he's been the NBA a couple seasons. What are your thoughts on Kevin Huerter?
Yeah. I mean, considering how young, most of this team is, and especially, in terms of experience in the playoffs, this is a guy that's gone on a deep run. If y'all remember that, Hawks run a couple years back, he was a big part of that. And he has tremendously made this all work because of the spacing that he provides, and just all of these dribble handoffs that he has with Sabonis that usually, are just easy shots for him, easy looks, top of the key corner. And I mean, it's what we've been missing for a while, a lengthy floor spacer.
No, definitely. And Carson, I mean, honestly, we're more Golden State centric, but your thoughts overall on just how Sacramento's been this year?
I think it really just starts with, I feel like the front office just being so terrible for so long now that it was all that all those terrible decisions just built up, and somehow, some way they finally had to make something good, right? And I feel like all those years combined into this year where it's every move worked. Obviously you start with the trade, losing Halliburton, that's really tough, but getting back Sabonis, I mean, really one of the only win-win trades that we've really seen in NBA history. Getting him, and he's just an offensive engine for you guys. The Huerter signing was great. The Monk signing was great. The Keegan Murray draft pick, I remember, everyone was why didn't they take Ivy? Ivy's going to go on to be some massive megastar now the Kings didn't take him. Right. And now you see it's Murray was perfect. He literally was perfect for you guys. He was not a bust at all. Barnes has been solid. Just, all the moves to, make this team this year have been great. And then obviously the Mike Brown signing, who didn't really have too much success, in a while as a head coach. But you trust him coming from the Warriors system, and just really a perfect storm of a lot of solid moves in the offseason, and just setting up such a fun team. And I feel like out of the West, like they have, to me, like the best overall skill. Like they're the best offensive team in the league, and they're the one that, like, even though they don't play any defense, they have the strongest like one skill set, which is offense. Like they have the scariest offense out of anyone in the West, which is why I think we'll get to their ceiling right now. It's like I can see them being around one exit because they're getting unlucky, possibly playing the Warriors, but really the West is so wide open that their offense just could be so strong that it really could get them as far as they want to, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Jose, what are your thoughts on that? What are your like realistic like expectations for this team?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to have expectations when you've never seen your team in the playoffs. So like it's kind of like we are obviously happy to be here, but this team is legitimately, could go on a run. And all we've really got to do is just get hot, right? And win 4 games in a series. And whether it's the Warriors or whether it's, the Lakers or the Clippers, whoever, like we're going to play who's in front of us. And we're just going to keep playing like we've been playing. Like, regardless, they can say that we don't play defense. They can say that, we're going to get swept in the first round, but I want to see it. I'm ready to see it. Like, let's go.
You got really unlucky getting set up with Golden State, who they haven't showed that championship pedigree yet this year. It's been really like, lackluster, just like, little glimpses here and there, but it's like never anything really serious. But now it's like of course, now it's like Andrew Wiggins is deciding to come back, and, they're going to be at full strength going to the playoffs. So that's a tough break, but who knows? We'll see. I mean, he's just coming back. You guys could easily just, with that home court advantage, we're terrible on the road. Who knows? Who knows?
We're great on the road, which is crazy. That's been like our MO all years. Like we're like the best team in the West away from home.
No, yeah, 25-15 at the moment. Top of the.
I think you're the only, like one of, if not the only team like above 500 on the road in the West. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Let's see. No, they are currently the only team above 500 on the road in the West.
Wow,
that's insane.
Lakers are 500, but the Clippers are 500. So that's the next closest. I mean, so kind of diving into the playoff matchup at the moment, the playoffs were to start today. The Kings would face the Clippers, which I think they have a really good chance. I think they could like legitimately win that game in like that series in 6 games. Who was like
Sabonis' stat line would be gnarly against the Clippers.
Yeah. So I'll guess ask both you guys, if you're the Kings, like who's the team you want to face the most and the least based on where the standings are right now?
I mean, the most probably the Clippers, just because I know for a fact like we can go toe to toe with them. And if y'all remember that quadruple overtime game in which it seemed like Malik Monk and Fox were like going back to back, like Weezy and Gunna just hitting buckets. It was crazy. So I mean that would be a fireworks type of series to watch for sure. As far as the least favorite, I probably the Lakers, just because it's Kings Lakers and the playoffs. We all know how that goes.
And they've been one of the hottest teams as of late. I mean, you got their 2 stars healthy. AR-15's been doing, one.
D'Lo been balling.
And D'Lo's been averaging 17 a game for them. Carson, do you have any, contrary to the Jose's opinions?
Yeah, I agree. I probably wouldn't want to see the Lakers right now just because they're firing on all cylinders. They're healthy, at this moment right now. Who knows if that's the case, if they, if they're still in it 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, whatever. But yeah, probably them. I mean, the Warriors, though, you can't argue that, like, if you would want to see the Warriors, it would be right now when they are just still slightly discombobulated with, Wiggins, still, getting his feet under and whatnot. But regardless, like that championship pedigree, like could come out at any moment. I'd probably say I'd want to see the Clippers just because they probably wouldn't even have Paul George yet if you guys played them in the first round, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it will be the Clippers are a tough team to watch. I mean, we'll do a little sidetrack with them. Like realistically, they're not going to make it to the finals, win the finals, so on and so forth. Like,
Yeah, let me see Westbrook in the playoffs. Like, let me see Westbrook in crunch time. Oh, I mean, who knows if Tyler would actually let that happen?
but what's the next step for this team? Like, they went all out. They got rid of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who that ended up being one of the most probably one of the poorest trades for the Clippers because they lose an All NBA first team caliber guard, and in return, sure they get Paul George. He's nice, but he doesn't play anything like he has since he was in OKC, and they don't even get a conference finals appearance out of this. I mean, like, what do you do if you're the Clippers?
They're in a really tough spot because they really did go like championship or bust. I mean, and it's tough because like their two biggest assets, Kawhi and PG, aren't the same level of assets because they're older. They have a lot of injury history. Kawhi is someone that you have no idea. He's like you have no idea what he's gonna do. He like no communication at all. He could easily just get up, leave, do whatever. He could go MIA for 6 months. Like they're in a really really tricky spot. I mean, they're lucky that they have an owner in Steve Ballmer that he's shown that he has the money. He'll do whatever it takes. But the problem is they just like they've set themselves up where they don't have a lot of outs. And I don't know. I feel like you see what you do in this postseason, and then maybe see how it goes for the next season. But then if you're like 500 or below at like next year's trade deadline, then you really have to start considering like what can we get? How could we get an out? Similar to like how the Nets were, this season.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
It's
Jose.
really tough 'cause I feel like they put all their eggs in this basket of like Kawhi and PG, and then obviously PG ended up being the number one for this team for most of this experiment that they've had going on because Kawhi is just never available.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when he has, he's been great, but the problem is like he's rarely available. And for a guy that you're paying as much as you are, and you're expecting to lead your franchise to a championship, it's like it puts you in a really tough spot to do you let go of this guy, or do we just keep running it back because we were so close 2 seasons ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, also they don't have any young talent. Like Bones Highland is their most promising young guy with like Brandon Boston Jr. and Terrence Mann, but like that's not a core you can build around. Like,
Yeah, no.
it's confusing because I guess like, well, let's say you trade Kawhi. Let's say one of those teams in the top like 10's willing to trade for Kawhi. Like, how many of those teams would really want him? Because I mean, you're not going to be able to land, trade for a top 3 pick, like especially in this draft. Like, people are not going to move their picks away. Like, I don't really know for this team. It's just, especially with a new arena coming in the next couple of years, the last thing you want to do is move a dumpster fire of an organization into that arena.
Yeah.
So
It's brewing though. It's coming.
no, yeah, the downfall of this team is evident. I mean, you got to make a move, sooner or later. So, kind of diving into more of the playoff stuff, we got Phoenix, made the biggest trade probably in NBA history with going out and getting Kevin Durant, in exchange for Bridges, who's been fantastic, as we mentioned before. We started this podcast. Can Phoenix go all the way? I mean, Bill Simmons, I listened to a lot of him. He says, Kevin Durant is the best plug and play superstar in NBA history because he's the guy, you give him the ball, like he can do anything out there in the court, and you don't have to build a team around him. You can maybe plug him in like he's a 3-and-D guy. So, Carson, I'll start with you. Like, do you think with this small amount of time Durant's played, I think 8 games at this moment with this current roster, can they make a playoff run and maybe even get back to the finals?
The simple answer to can they go all the way? Yes, because a couple reasons. One, because the West really is, I think we can all agree, the West really is so wide open. In the East, it's clear. Like, I think we all realize it's going to be either Milwaukee, Boston, or if it goes right for them, Philly. And there's more question marks with them than other teams. It should be one of those 3 teams, right? I feel like we can all agree with that. In the West, I feel like there's a case for 7 teams, 8 teams. It's like if this happens, this happens. It's that wide open. There's so much parity in the West. And I think for the Suns, they have as good of a case as anything because you have one of those guys. I mean, there's only so many guys that are like alpha dogs that can win a championship. You know, it's Giannis, it's Curry, it's LeBron, KD. You know, they have him. 4 guys that they have. With Durant, Ayton, CP3, Booker. They have enough there. I just worry about the supporting cast. That's like the biggest thing. And I think honestly next year would be the year for them. They can bolster the supporting cast and they have a full year of AD under their belt.
Yeah, I mean, Jose, what are your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I have to agree. Like regardless of how many games KD has played or hasn't played, like this is a guy that is gonna get to his spots. He's gonna make shots, especially in the playoffs, and especially off of potentially 3 other big threats in DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul. Like this is a team that can get hot and make shots, especially in the playoffs. Like Chris Paul's got crazy playoff experience. Booker's been there. Aiden's been there now. Like this, we could be seeing this team just cruise for a second and then, run into a Nuggets or whoever.
And Aiden's had good playoff success, like outside of his regular season play. Like he's a guy that you can trust to at least like make Jokic work if you end up facing them, in that 4 or 5, winner 4-5 matchup, assuming Denver gets out of the first round. So super interesting team. Yeah, I would say they can definitely you should expect them probably to get past the first round, and like from there, who knows? I think they could make the finals, but I think it's a year too soon. I think a team like the Bucks would just give them the work, simply enough.
And they're so top heavy that it's like, you get one injury and it's like, it's kind of wraps.
Yeah. I mean, like Josh Okogie's been kind of their main guy, like at the 3. And like if you lose him, like you're starting Terrence Ross out there in like a must-win playoff game. Like,
hey, T. Ross has dropped 50 in the league before though.
Yeah, not 50 years ago though, but
yeah, that was when I was at like Heart Ransom.
Exactly. And then another team that we mentioned this earlier, that's been there, done that, reigning champions, Golden State. Andrew Wiggins going through like the family stuff. He's been, screw all those rumors that people made up. That was terrible. But you had the feud in the beginning of the season, which may have been a reason why this team's not been as good as they are with the Jordan Poole, Draymond Green stuff. But this might really be one of the last years Golden State can truly make a run. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green both can be looking for new contracts this offseason. Carson, I'll start with you again. Like, what are your honest expectations with Golden State? Because I think we might be out in the second round if we're able to make it past the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has been really alarming this season. I mean, it's just been really bad at some points. And then the road record, I mean, that's just been something. It hasn't been fixed. The defense and the road stuff has not been fixed all year. And obviously those are 2 of the most important aspects of like winning a championship right there. I think you always just have to, give them the benefit of the doubt, but they definitely don't feel as strong. And I feel like, but the only thing that reserves me from saying that they're going to get beat straight up is because no one stepped up and like been that team. Like to me, like the Grizzlies and Nuggets, those are like the 2 teams that like I could have seen them like, oh, there's no way the Warriors would get past them. But like, dude, the Grizzlies really haven't been all that great the last like month or so. And then the Nuggets, I mean, they have their defensive woes as well. So I don't know. I personally probably say no, but ultimately deep down, it's like I feel like we all know that they're a giant that could be looming whenever. We just really haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jose. I mean, any more thoughts?
It's kind of like Laker fans always like to say like, oh, we're saving it. We're saving it for the playoffs. LeBron's gonna hit the switch, and then everything's gonna work out. But I feel like the Warriors are one of the few teams that like genuinely can actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like, come on, this is a dynasty still, at its core with Draymond, Klay, Curry,
especially with Wiggins and especially Gary Payton being back now. It's like the defensive identity is, should be coming around at the right time.
Yeah. I think there's a certain level of intensity that they've yet to hit, and they're going to hit once the playoffs start.
And we got Curry, bro. We got one of those guys. Like,
exactly. You got a guy that can be a number one on a championship team, and he's proved it before. You guys were talking, Jose, you mentioned the Lakers. I mean, everybody in the media loves talking about them because, Lakers are a big market team. Everyone loves hearing what's going on with them. They've been on a roll, since that trade deadline. I think Jared Vanderbilt, one of the most underrated acquisitions this entire season. It's been good for them. Austin Reeves, we mentioned earlier, D'Angelo Russell. Jose, do you really think this team is like for real, or like are they just going to get bounced by like a better put together team?
I mean, I think this is a very solid core for the Lakers, especially the acquisition of Vanderbilt. Like I feel like that's the piece that they were missing in order to go on a run like this, because him and AD now on the court together defensively, like no one's fucking with that. And I mean, offensively, D'Lo provides pretty much any role that they need. If they need him to spot up, or if they need him to, go get a couple buckets, like he can do that too. And it was almost like a perfect acquisition for them. That like we see it now, they've gotten really hot, and it's at the right time. And who knows if they can make it to the finals. I was just about to bring up like the fact that we have this many teams that we're like, dude, they could probably go to the finals. They probably can't. I don't know. Like the conversation about parity in the NBA is crazy. Because if it was like we had like 2, 3.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I get worried about is their lack of shooting outside of, a guy like Russell and Reeves as of late. Like they don't really have guys that can, help make that like climb back if they're down, 15 to a Suns or something like that. I'm worried because, AD, dominant post player, LeBron, dominant all around guy, but like their lack of shooters, I think, could be a problem at the end of the day. But I mean, we saw them, the Suns beat them a couple of years ago. Like, sure, they win a couple of games, but like they handled them and they ended up making the finals. So, and you never know with their health. One of the LeBron or AD's down, like even for a game or two, like that can ultimately decide the series. So,
yeah, for sure.
Let's dive into some disappointing teams. I think New Orleans and another team we'll mention has got to be at the top of that list. Looking beforehand, I didn't realize how many little amount of games Zion's played. He's averaging less than 30 games a season since he's been a pro. I mean, obviously a big part of that was he didn't play a whole entire season, but I mean, this team was top of the West at one point, like halfway through the season, and now they're scraping in for a play-in spot. I mean, like, what are your guys' thoughts?
Just sad. It really is sad because one of the questions you have on here, how do you make this roster what they should be? I don't really think it's about the roster at all. I really, really like this roster. I think it's perfectly constructed. Like I love their swing guys. I love the duo of Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, who's been really stepping up massive these last few weeks. Brandon Ingram's a bucket. CJ's solid. I like Valanciunas a lot. They have real playoff guys off the bench. Alvarado. I like Najee Marshall. And then Willie Green's a really solid coach. And it's really just it's all up to Zion. That's the thing. Like you talk about eggs in a basket, like their, ceiling is all on him. And it just sucks when it's, on a guy that hasn't proven that he can play a full season. I feel like it's very similar like how Embiid was, early in his career. So hopefully, he's still so young. Hopefully he can figure it out and we can really see this team at full potential, because I think if he's there, because we know what he is, he's not a bust. Like we know what he is when he's healthy. It's just all on him, because when he's there, like this team, like could be in that upper echelon for sure. Because they proved it at the beginning of the season, at least. Like they showed, flashes of a very high ceiling.
Yeah, Jose, any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, it really just sucks because I mean, like Carson said, this is a really well constructed team. Like they've got so many of my favorite guys, like Jose Alvarado, for example. Just like such a fun team that's just missing that guy. But the problem is they have that guy. He just can't get on the court and stay on the court. And it's really unfortunate. Like at this point, you're just kind of, you're just kind of waiting for him to come back. It's kind of like that situation with Kawhi Leonard where you're just kind of left in the dark and you're just waiting for this guy to come back and hopefully he can stay on the court.
Yeah, and he's transitioning into a multi-year contract, 5 years, 194 million, which if he isn't on the floor, you don't have the money to bring in other people. Like he's taking up a large percentage of the cap. You still got CJ and like Brandon Ingram. I'm just worried they're going to scapegoat one of those guys to try and get their team to have a more well-rounded roster. Because with CJ getting older, you could say, oh, like we think Dyson Daniels is going to take a step up. Like let's trade CJ when like you truly need him. And then Valanciunas could be out. Who knows? But then the day, like you have an all NBA MVP caliber guy that just can't play games for you, and he might go down as one of the biggest what ifs we've ever seen in basketball. It's simple as that. So another one, we could have a whole episode on this team. The Dallas Mavericks. I think they were 4th in the West at the trade deadline. They decide to, roll the dice, trade Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, some other pieces to get Kyrie Irving out of Brooklyn, give him another guy alongside Luka, But at the end of the day, it all comes back to why did they let Jalen Brunson walk? And I just kind of want to know your thoughts on this team, and then I'll say what I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, it really is sad that the Mavericks lucked into one of the most generational guys possible, and they just haven't been able to figure it out. I mean, and is it time to seriously consider trading Luka? I'm not really sure because I feel like you have to hold on to someone like him for as long as you can. But I mean, Mark Cuban, he's a great owner in a lot of aspects, but when it comes to the actual team building and stuff, and obviously the GM has responsibility with that as well. But I mean, you look at when they had Dirk, right? They won the championship 2011. They didn't make the playoffs after that for a whole decade. That's something.
Let Steve Nash walk.
They let Steve Nash walk. They overthought it with Brunson, not just giving him the extension, which now, I mean, if they would have signed him last year to whatever he would have been making on that extension, that would have been the biggest steal, easily craziest contract in the league, with how he's producing right now. It's really tough. And if they, it looks like they might end up blowing this with Luka, and it might get to the point where Luka's that good, he could just walk out. And it's just crazy how they haven't been able to figure out a roster around a guy like this.
Yeah. I mean, if the thing is they sat their Kyrie and Luka because they want to get that 10th pick, but they have to get the 10th pick, or if it drops, it's not their pick. It goes to the team that took Jalen Brunson from them in New York. That's the we're talking if they don't get that 10th pick, they don't make a lot of moves. I would not be surprised if Luka requests the trade out of there.
For sure.
And let's just hypothetically, let's think in imaginary. Where would you want him to go?
Denver. Pair him up with Jokic. Let's run it.
So I couldn't even
Murray, Porter, and every pick possible.
Jesus.
That would be crazy. I would just only worry about you take the ball out of Jokic's hands too much with Luka.
That's fair. That's it is the most ridiculous 2K putting a team together kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you have Joker and Luka and the defense. I mean, you'd have to put a ton of defense around them. But
hey, Shea can dominate without the ball. That's all I gotta say.
I was about to say him and Shea on the Thunder, bro. They've got so many assets.
They can do it. They have the assets to do it. I mean, and it's gonna take a boatload of shit for Luka, but
they have it. It wouldn't hurt him. It wouldn't hurt him that much.
Hey, but the real question is, does Jalen Williams have to be in that trade though?
No.
He would be. He would be. Let's talk about him for a second. He has been crazy.
He's a baller.
Half the season. I mean, giving a guy who's averaging 20 points a game as a rookie a run for his money for Rookie of the Year. I mean, Carson, I know you're really high on Williams. Let's talk about him for a second.
Yeah, no, well, part of me is like it's halfway joke just because it's like it's Luca. You give up whatever you possibly can to get someone like that,
Yeah.
but still, it's like that is really something. It's kind of like with Durant. It's like obviously you're getting Durant, like let's go, but like giving up Bridges, like that was a tough pill to swallow. And definitely with the Thunder, if that was the case, like that would be a really tough pill to swallow, losing a guy like that who seems like he fits perfectly next to Shea and is just the exact kind of prototype that every NBA team wants.
Mhm.
But yeah, that would be tough. But I mean, yeah, shout out to him, man. He really is balling. What a pleasant surprise coming out of the draft. I feel like everyone kind of really liked him, but no one was really sure like the ceiling of this guy. And then all of a sudden, like, after his rookie year, it's like we really have to reevaluate this guy's ceiling. Like, what is this guy going to be really good? Is this guy going to be multi-time all-star? Is this guy going to be an all-NBA guy? I mean, it really seems like sky's the limit for him. He's shown that much potential just in his rookie year, but he would have to go for sure to get Luca. And then at the end of the day, you have Luca, you have Shea, and you have whatever collection of role players. And with the Thunder, they still have picks left over, wouldn't they?
They've still got Chet.
And
Yeah.
they have Chet. Ooh, they could throw Chet in there instead.
I would throw Chet in
Well,
there. Fuck it.
I mean, yeah, like go get a veteran center instead. I mean, so Williams has been averaging last month in April, averaged 20 points a game, 6 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 87.5 from the line, 46.3 from three, and 56.6 from the field. Like,
I just want to be on the record. Paulo is still the rookie of the year. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
He still is. But like you said, bro, like the fact that he's like made it a conversation when it was like clearly like Paulo's award is something within itself.
And yeah, so let's say like Luka goes, and like, then Kyrie's going to another team again, which is just going to be because Kyrie's not going to stay there. That's laughing. He could retire for all we know. I mean, you never know with him. Like, he's always got something on his back. And then the good old running from the grind story. My favorite guy to talk about, Damian. The Portland Trailblazers. People were having them as high as like being a 5 or a 6 seed this year. I just didn't believe in it. Like, I thought Jeremy Grant was putting up empty stats in Detroit, which he actually wasn't. He's been solid this year, but it's just not a winning team over there in Portland. Like, you got to hope Shaden Sharp develops. Shaden Sharp and Simons, that's your core going forward. But like, can he run from the grind, or can Portland make him run from the grind?
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts. Yeah.
It's a tough situation, especially, I mean, I'm around a lot of Blazer fans here, and a lot of them are like, man, we're just trying to tank so we can get, a top 5 pick and, draft some other superstar to put next to Dame. And I'm like, that is the most like backwards, unrealistic logic I've ever heard, because Damian Lillard is in his prime right now. Has been in his prime, has been, a top 3 guard in the league for the past however many years, and you just have not been able to make any significant, championship-esque moves. And they've somehow regressed since trading CJ, which was supposed to be, what elevated them past, the duo of Dame and CJ. They break it up so that, they can focus on just building around Dame. And then now it's like they're tanking. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Carson, what are your thoughts with this whole situation in Portland?
I mean, we've been doing this podcast for like 2 years now?
No, almost 2.5. It's getting 3 towards the end of this year. So
yeah, about 2.5. I feel like we've had this conversation like at least like 20 times about Dame. It just feels like, going insane over it. I just really wish Portland and they're very similar to like the Wizards in a sense that they're just like stuck in this perpetual state of being mid, even when you have a guy like Dame. And I feel like at some point it's like, where you have to be realistic. Like, where are you really going with the roster currently being constructed? And we all, like as NBA fans, are all just starving to see Dame, in the playoffs again, because he's shown that he does, not run away from the smoke. He steps up in big moments. We just all want to see him, competing for a championship. That's all. And I hope it happens. I hope Portland, comes to their senses and realizes like they could get a really, really, solid trade package for Dame.
Send him to Miami. Send him to Miami.
That would go crazy.
What would you guys give up though?
You trade Lowry's contract, expiring contract. You got to throw in Duncan Robinson. You give in like Jovic. You give in maybe Gabe Vincent, and then you throw in just a plethora of picks. Because you also got to realize, like, sure, like Dame is like a all NBA guy, but he's also, you know, trending downwards in terms of
33.
So like they're not gonna have to pay a king's ransom like you would have to for like, you know, like Kate. But obviously KD's a little old, but KD's game's timeless. But
yeah, but don't you need like one player that you can somewhat point to, right? And I feel like none of those guys you can point to any of them. I mean, Duncan Robinson doesn't even play anymore.
No, I'm saying like Jovic would have to be the guy that would be like the centerpiece because they don't really have it like it would be hard to see him move on from Tyler Hero. I don't think they would budge in that trade. I mean, they would have to throw in, you know, probably Oladipo in there as well. But I seriously think if you threw enough picks at Portland, they would do it.
I think Hero. I mean, you basically replace Hero with Dame.
Hero in that trade.
I would do that though. I mean, then you're talking Dame, Jimmy, and Bam. Like
that's a first.
That's serious. That's serious.
I think that's the best situation. I was just looking through that before we started. I don't know where else you'd want him to go.
Especially because we always wanted to see Dame paired with like a really strong defensive identity, like defensive team, and then you have that with Jimmy and Bam. Like that would, man, that would be a problem.
3 guys that can handle the ball. You know, you can have Dame play off ball, just running screen sets.
You have those 3, and then you just, you know, through their history, you just trust Miami to like find like cheap and solid options to put around them. I mean, they've been finding those guys for the last like 5-10 years now with Pat Riley. Like, yeah, that would be crazy.
Caleb Martin, all those kind of guys. Yeah, I think it would be great. So let's circle back to some other. I want to talk about Ben Simmons because outside of Dame, this dude's probably the guy we talk about the most on this channel. I mean, like I know Carson's had a lot of like he's had a roller coaster like relationship with Ben Simmons. So is he unplayable at this point?
Yeah. He's done. Like,
because they got no point in playing him. I mean, he provides no value to them. Like they have, like sure you can say, oh, they could play center for them. They don't need that. They have Nicholas Claxton for that. He's been fantastic, defensive player of the year kind of guy. Like what's this whole like Brooklyn situation? You know, they don't really have the draft capital anymore. Like they can't tank. So like, how does Brooklyn go about from this? You know, they're probably going to get knocked in round 1. So be it. But you got a centerpiece guy in Mikal Bridges. You just try and trade those depth wings to get like capital or like young guys. Like, what do you guys think with Brooklyn?
I think they found themselves in a similar situation around like 5-ish years ago. When they were like really, you know, getting hit hard with criticism because, you know, Jaylen Brown was, you know, popping off for the Celtics. Jason Tatum was popping off for the Celtics. And the Nets were left with no picks, no assets. And, you know, it was like, how do you rebuild this team? And I think it was, I believe the GM Sean Marks who, you know, started making some moves to kind of change the team culture. That's when they acquired D'Angelo Russell. You know, they built a really fun team around him. You know, they moved on from that weird Brook Lopez era. And I think similarly, that's how they're going to go about rebuilding this team. You know, they're just going to wait for an opportunity, you know, to trade for a guy and then just, you know, just kind of let time run its course. Eventually, you know, the team will come around.
Hey, shout out Sean Marks though. I met him before. Cool guy.
Really?
Yeah, I met him last summer. But let's transition into the Wizards. I think this is one of the most dumpster fire organizations of the last decade. The only thing they have to go for themselves is that John Wall and Brad Beal, like they had that one run. But like this is a like horrendous team. And like sure, like Bradley Beal, the average fan might be viewed as, you know, still like one of those top like, you know, shooting guards in the league, but his contract is horrendous. Like he's getting paid that super duper max. And can you really move on from it at this point? And like, how do you make this team better? Carson, I'll start with you this time.
Man, I mean, that is a great question. We're talking about the Wizards?
Yeah, so you got Porzingis, you got Kuzma, Beal. None of those guys are really going to get better. And
The Wizards, they're in like they're the midders. Like they're just like it's all it really it's not even a roster thing. It's really like the front office. I mean, Tommy Shepard is just like, been stuck in a state of like not wanting to tank, but also like not having enough around to like, actually like be a championship contender. I mean, there's really like, it really kind of like just put themselves in an absolutely terrible spot. I mean, yeah, Beal gave him a superstar contract, but he's not a superstar. I don't know why they didn't trade Kuzma at the deadline. I mean, I'm sure there was a line of contenders that would have loved to have had Kuzma, especially, in the West. Porzingis, I mean, actually been playing pretty well this season, but I still feel like, that's somewhat still of a distressed asset. I mean, it's really tough, and I just have no idea where they're going to go. And honestly, I don't really care because they've just shown time and time again that they just aren't capable of, fielding a championship level team, and they're just constantly, they always want to be stuck in they're like, they're horny for the playing game. That's what they are every season. They just want to get in the playing game. That's like what they've been for the last few seasons.
And like you just have a multitude of draft picks that they're drafting in such a weird spot. None of them turn into anything. Like
Denny, the Denny pick was tough. The Johnny Davis pick was tough. And it's not like I don't like Denny, but like when you look at all the guys that were around him.
Yeah. And even like Kispert, like he's not really that great either. I mean, I was thinking of like, what's a trade you could realistically do for the Wizards if you want to get rid of Brad Beal? And we were just talking about the Nets. What about if you traded Ben Simmons, like Cam Thomas, in a first for Brad Beal? Because what do the Nets have to lose?
I just don't know if they're trading Beal at all.
But like they're just gonna stay in. They're gonna stay in purgatory with him. That's the only problem.
I feel like they're happy doing that though. Like they're just kind of, content with themselves being a mid-ass team.
Well, like if you were in the shoes of their GM, like what would you want to do? I would blow the whole thing up.
Yeah. I'd probably like just fucking scrap the whole roster and just
same. But they've shown that they're just not gonna do that.
Yeah. Like just tank for Cameron Boozer at this point. Like we look far in the future. Like
and just get better at drafting, bro. Like hire some new people, hire some better scouts. Like just get better at drafting. Simply.
Like I swear, if they get lucky enough and land Wembanyama, I might actually like break my wall.
Oh, that would
they wouldn't deserve that. That would be sad.
Like they'd be the last team you'd want to see get Wembanyama because they would probably make the playoffs with him, but like, dude would get so pissed off. He'd probably go back to Mets 92. Like he would not stay in the NBA if he got drafted by the Wizards.
Isn't the lottery coming up in like a few weeks?
Let's see. Well, we have to see what's it called? May 16th. So
yeah,
got about a month and a week. That'll be interesting to see. Then looking at the playoffs, though, we have one matchup that we know is going to happen. We talked about these teams. We talked about one of these teams already, but haven't talked about the other. We'll talk about the Cavs, though. Cleveland versus New York. I think huge series. I think for both sides, especially in Cleveland. Did the Donovan Mitchell acquisition give them the ability to make a run in these playoffs? Are they too early? Like, do we still need to see Evan Mobley develop, as a shooter, beyond the mid-range area? What are your guys' thoughts going into this playoff series, and who needs this victory more?
I think Cleveland. Just because I feel like they have more of a championship trajectory per se. I feel like with Cleveland, like we all realize like they might actually be like a couple of years away from like competing for NBA finals. I feel like we're that high on their young core, especially with, how we expect Mobley to develop. And I feel like this is like the kind of series that you want to see them win early on in their trajectory. With that being, because like New York, I feel like they're still like another asset or two away from being like legit contenders. And with Cleveland, I feel like they're slightly closer to that. But with that being said, this is going to be box office. Like I feel like this might be my most exciting first round series. I think it could easily go 7. The New York crowd is going to be insane, and the Brunson Mitchell matchup. I mean, bro, come on.
And Mitchell that was the team that people thought he was going to go to. And then he surprises the world and goes to Cleveland. I mean, like that's another storyline there. And just like, can Randall prove that he's more than a regular season guy? Because he hasn't so far. I mean, he was horrendous in that last postseason run that they had. I think it was 2 years ago now. And yeah, I think, New York still has some moves to make. I think RJ Barrett, they might need to pull the plug on him. I think they can.
Where I feel like with Cleveland, it's really just like, it's just that small forward. It's just that 3. Like that's like the last thing, and maybe bolstering the bench a little bit. But I feel like they're a lot closer than the Knicks. Maybe not a lot closer, but they're closer than the Knicks.
Jose, your thoughts on this series? Team you think may win?
Because he took the Cavs, I'm gonna have to say, the Knicks have also got, a lot to prove in this series. Their first year with, their new, highly anticipated point guard in Jalen Brunson, and he's been, producing at an insane level for them. And so, I mean, him, obviously Randall was a huge disappointment last year. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Like he said, it's going to be box office, and it's going to be, back and forth the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can I say something about the Knicks real quick?
Go ahead.
I love Quentin Grimes. Like he is a winner, bro. Like every time I watch the Knicks, like he is always just doing something positive for them. Whether it's like draining like crucial threes to like, take a 10-point deficit into a 7-point deficit where the other team's got to take a a timeout. Whether it's like the defense from him, whether it's like momentum swinging dunks. He's just like a winning dude, and I feel like that was like a draft pick. Everyone talks about Quickly and like what a steal he was, but like I feel like Grimes just doesn't get the same amount of love, and like he's just as much of a problem as Quickly is. And I really like how fast the young guys for the Knicks are developing. Him, Quickly, Toppin, when they all like weren't as highly talked about and like highly touted as like some of the other prospects in their draft classes.
Quickly's been on a heater lately. I mean, the first 3 games of April, he's averaging 28 points a game, shooting 55 from 3. He had that huge game against the Celtics. When was that?
That was nuts. Like a 30 piece in like what, double overtime or
38, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals, 15 of 28 shooting. Like that was an insane game. Following the Miami game where, he had a good game as well. But like he might be the X factor why New York can win this series, because Mitchell and Garland go out. Like there is Garland's not a good defender, but like there's no one on Cleveland's bench that can stop him. Like he would just shred through that team. Like that, I'll take the Knicks in 7. I like both teams. I really like the Cavs, honestly, but I'll take the Knicks in 7. I think Quickly's playing his best basketball at the right time of the year, and cannot go wrong with that. So any other points to make before you get ready for some playoff time?
Nah, man, I'm really excited to see how the West shapes up. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely come back to you guys when there's we had the first round matchups set in place. Give us our picks, and it's been Coast to Coast Podcast as always. Signing out. Peace.